Hey, I'm Hannah Weiss, the Director of Education at the Science Museum of Western Virginia, and this is your Moment of STEM. And this week, we're going to talk about football. Okay, so this is the point in a lot of videos where someone would throw a football from off screen and I would catch it, but I'm not a coordinated enough human to make that happen. We are going to talk about football, though. You see, the Super Bowl is happening this weekend, and the Super Bowl is this huge, huge thing in football. But it turns out there is a ton of science in football that I thought it would be really neat to talk about. For example, in football, pretty much everything that's happening is two people bumping into each other. And anytime you have two bodies kind of crashing, you have a collision, which, to my memory anyway, is pretty much the first semester of physics. And there are all sorts of collisions that happen in football. You have elastic collisions where, two things bump and bounce back off. You have inelastic collisions where they bounce and kind of keep going together. You have, one body moving and the other not, or two bodies moving. So much going on. And actually, I bet if you were really, really careful, you could go back to the equations and calculate everything that was going on, which, now that I think of it, is probably the geekiest way to watch football. But no matter, to each their own. In addition to those collisions, you also have this really, really cool projectile motion happening. So anytime you watch the football get thrown, that's projectile motion. But what's really neat is if you trace it going across your screen, and probably don't actually use a marker to do this, you can see one of these parabolic arcs start to happen. And that's because when we throw things, we're usually not just throwing them straight. We're usually throwing them at an angle. And the angle and speed that these objects are thrown at control how high they go and actually how far they go. So if you really watch players when they throw the football, the angle will change based on how far they're trying to get the ball to go. Of course, it's not really simple projectile motion that's happening because there's a lot more things going on. For example, we don't just kind of throw footballs. There's actually some spin when you throw them, which changes some stuff. Of course, the coolest bit of science that's happening during football isn't really happening during the game. It's actually what the players are wearing. See, football can be a fairly dangerous sport. Those collisions that we talked about earlier, they can have some pretty dangerous impacts on the human body. And some of the repercussions of them include concussions. But there are a lot of scientists and researchers, including some right down the road at Virginia Tech, that are exploring materials and methods of construction for football helmets that can help to make football a much, much safer sport. If you would like to learn any more about the science that we talked about today, or some of the science that we didn't even touch, you can check out any of the links below. Otherwise, I'm Hannah Weiss from the Science Museum of Western Virginia, and I really still can't catch a football.